Hello, and welcome to our fourth week on the theme of Faith in Science for Awakened. I deeply believe that religion and science are compatible, that they are flip sides to the same coin, that they ask different questions, but that they go together. They don't compete with each other, they complete each other. And Americans, as they're surveyed, seem to agree. Surveys indicate that people see religion and science as asking fundamentally different questions and having different purposes. People say in these surveys that the purpose of religion is to provide moral perspective on our lives, and that the purpose of science is to observe natural phenomena in the universe. But science isn't just observation, is it? Science results in technological advances and findings, and those often have moral implications. Now, over the past few weeks, I've certainly suggested that the facts that we have discovered with science, at least our best perspective on those right now, ought to inform our theology and the way that we view the world. But I don't think it's a one-way street. I also think that religion has something to say to science as well, especially if we believe, as most people seem to, that the purpose of religion is to provide moral perspective for our lives. And I think certainly religion has something to say to science. I think that religion can tell us what types of science we ought to pursue and why, and which ones we need to be a bit more cautious about. For instance, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of debate, and let's be honest, amongst religious communities, there is a lot of debate about whether or not a vaccine should be pursued. But if we believe that Jesus' teachings call us to more fully love our neighbor and to value life, then certainly if there is a virus that is killing people, then the ethical answer our religious tradition tells us is to pursue a vaccine that will save people's lives and will allow us to flourish as human beings, to get back into community. Those are all Christian values that Jesus taught us. And so the Christian response was to pursue a vaccine. Religion had something to say to science in that case. I think that understanding religion can also add understanding to scientific discoveries as they are being made. For instance, there's been a lot of debate about embryonic stem cell research and whether or not that's ethical. And this debate has been both within religious communities and outside of religious communities. But if we look to the Bible and we recognize that the Bible actually defines life as beginning later than we typically think about it today and not earlier, that can provide some valuable perspective. In fact, in the Bible, life was defined as beginning at first breath in Genesis 2, verse 7, and the ancient concept of life was that people didn't really become alive until their naming ceremony after they had been born. And that's because childbirth was so precarious in the ancient world and there was a high infant mortality rate. So the Bible, as much as fundamentalists don't want this to be true, the Bible actually defines life as beginning later than we typically think about it today and not earlier. And so that means that there's not really a religious reason to stop embryonic stem cell research. People may have other moral objections, but it's not really because of any ethical dilemma in the Christian tradition. So religion can help to provide insight on scientific discoveries. And then I think religion can also tell us when it's time to put on the brakes and think about things a little bit as well. For instance, right now there are growing advances in AI, and many of those are wonderful and many of them can be a little scary. Perhaps you've seen some of the posts on social media where people say, AI writing poetry and songs while humans perform back-breaking menial labor for minimum wage isn't exactly the future I had in mind. And so I think religion too can help us to think about human rights and human flourishing and what kinds of advancement we want and which kinds we need to be a little bit more cautious about, or maybe we don't want. And so I think that religion actually has something very valuable to say to science. I, of course, have my own perspectives, as I've just given, on what that might be, but perhaps you have different perspectives. This week's spiritual practice is to sit down and think about what religion has to say to science. Think about some scientific advancements, some of the developments that are going on in our world right now, and what your faith tells you about those advancements. Sit down and journal about it. Make a list. Write it on your phone, whatever it is that helps you to process that information, and spend some time with that. I love the fact that religion and science are both a part of our lives. And I look forward to a day when we get better about learning how those two can be communicating with one another and not put at odds constantly by society, by the media, by even our own brains, but instead that we can embrace both science and religion as fundamentally life-giving. May it be so.